Hey guys, tonight we're going to travel back, way, way back. Before apps, before electricity, before anyone ever had the excuse to say, I'm too busy to meditate. We're diving into the world of ancient meditation techniques, and it's going to get weird, in a soft, soothing, incense-swirled kind of way. I'm talking about breath rituals that were supposed to open celestial gates, temples designed like lungs, and chants so powerful they were whispered only under eclipses. You probably won't survive this. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Breathe in. The Egyptians believed that breath was sacred, not just important for life, sacred. In fact, in some early priesthood texts, it's written that the breath of Ra lives in every inhale. Dramatic? Maybe. But remember, these people built entire temples aligned with solstices using nothing but sandstone and star maps. They were not messing around. There's one temple wall, Edfu, I think, where a priest is shown breathing into a vessel before placing it in front of a statue. That's not just showmanship. Some Egyptologists say this was meant to transfer the essence of life, or Kai, into an object. Others argue it was symbolic. But here's the thing. When you stand in that temple, the air feels heavy, like it remembers being sacred. Now shift eastward a bit. Ancient India had its own breath obsession, pranayama. If you've ever taken a yoga class, you've probably been told to inhale through one nostril and exhale through the other. Silly? Until you learn that this technique was originally mapped alongside chakra points, supposed energy vortices in the body. Yogis claim that by controlling breath, they could literally direct life force to different parts of the body. Got a sore knee? Breathe into it. One Sanskrit manual from the 4th century BCE describes a breath technique meant to ignite the flame at the base of the spine. That's either poetic or a biological fire hazard. Still, some texts say the right combination of inhale, hold, and exhale could unlock samadhi, the ultimate meditative state where duality disappears. You in the universe? One cozy thought blanket. Even Plato dipped his philosophical toe into the breath waters. He called breath the vehicle of the soul. Historians still argue whether he meant that literally or metaphorically. But let's be honest, try holding your breath for 90 seconds and see how much soul you feel then. Now here's a fringe nugget. Some mystics believe the act of exhaling could banish demons. Not metaphorical ones, real ones, especially if you combined it with a whispered vowel. The letter ah, drawn out on a long, slow breath, was said to dissolve negative energy fields. There are modern sound healers who still do this. I met one in New Mexico who claimed his exhale once knocked a poltergeist out of a toaster. Ancient Jewish mysticism also had breath practices. The Kabbalists taught that the divine name of God wasn't even supposed to be spoken. It was breathed. The Tetragrammaton, YQWH, wasn't a word. It was a pattern of airflow. Try it sometime. Inhale with a soft YH, exhale on an HWH. It's eerie, beautiful, and it feels ancient. Like something your lungs were taught before you had a name. And then there's the Taoists. Leave it to the Chinese sages to turn breathing into a multi-tiered alchemical system. They had what they called embryonic breathing, where you try to breathe without moving your chest. The idea was to return to the way a fetus breathes in the womb, not creepy at all. The goal? To restore the original vitality you were born with, before stress, emails, and taxes stole your sparkle. There's an old Taoist line I love, the immortal breathes through the heels. That's either a translation glitch or the most hardcore version of mindful walking ever invented. Let's zoom back westward, just for a second. The early Christians, especially the Desert Fathers, had their own version of breath meditation. They'd repeat short prayers in rhythm with inhaling and exhaling. Lord have mercy, in, on me, out, over and over. Some monks claimed it made their hearts beat in sync with the divine. Some modern neurologists suggest it probably just stimulated the vagus nerve. Potato. But don't let the science steal the magic. Because the breath, it's the oldest tool we have. No batteries, no subscriptions, just air, ribs, and a little intention. And somehow our ancestors knew that before they knew much else. So the next time someone tells you to just breathe, realize that what they're really saying is, reboot your soul. Let's climb now, up into the cold, crisp air of the Himalayas. Picture this: stone huts nestled in snow, prayer flags snapping in the wind, and monks wrapped in simple robes sitting cross-legged, barefoot, in sub-zero temperatures. Welcome to the ancient Tibetan practice of Tummo, also known as inner fire meditation. I know, sounds like a Marvel power, but this isn't fiction. Tummo isn't just about visualization or mantras. It's about heating your body from the inside out, with nothing but breath and will. The practice comes from Vajrayana Buddhism, and it's been passed down secretly, teacher to student, for centuries. You start by generating heat through rhythmic breathing, while visualizing flames rising from your navel. Think of it like kindling a fire in your belly, only this one melts snow. And here's the kicker: Western researchers have studied it. In one experiment, monks were wrapped in freezing wet sheets, then left outside. And guess what? They dried the sheets with their body heat alone. No heaters, no tricks, just ancient biohacking that would make Silicon Valley blush. Some neuroscientists theorize that Tummo activates the sympathetic nervous system, triggering thermogenesis. Others just stare at the data and mutter, "This shouldn't be possible." But Tibet didn't stop there. Their meditative toolkit included sky-gazing practices, where yogis would stare into the vast blue expanse until their sense of self dissolved. There's even a ritual called dark retreat, where a practitioner isolates themselves in pitch blackness for weeks, sometimes months. The goal? To encounter visions that arise when your brain gets bored of the dark and starts making its own light. You ever sit in a room so quiet you could hear your own heartbeat and suddenly question the nature of reality? That's Tuesday for these monks. Now slide south a bit, to the Indian subcontinent again. Here we meet the wild children of meditation, the tantrics. While modern Western yoga studios offer sanitized poses and Instagram-friendly candles, ancient tantra was messy, mysterious, and magnificently intense. In one tantric school, there was a practice called Kachari Mudra, where the tongue is trained to reach all the way back into the nasal cavity. I know, gross, but hear me out. The idea was to tap into the bindu, a spiritual nectar said to drip from the top of the spinal cord. Practitioners believed that by tasting it, they could extend their life, calm the mind, and even induce states of bliss. Fringe? Absolutely. But these weren't bored hippies. These were serious seekers willing to turn their bodies into cosmic instruments. There's also the legendary Shavasana, a meditation performed while sitting atop a corpse. Yep, you read that right. The goal was to confront impermanence head-on, sit with death, and you might realize what truly lives. Historians still argue whether these corpse rituals were metaphorical or literal. Some say it's symbolic of ego death. Others point to written accounts and chilling oral traditions. Either way, that's one way to make your mindfulness practice unforgettable. Meanwhile, in more subdued circles, Vipassana was emerging, the clear-seeing technique that would later become the backbone of modern mindfulness. You sit, you scan the body, you observe without judgment. But what people forget is that ancient Vipassana wasn't about stress relief, it was about liberation, seeing through the illusion of self, time, and even reality itself. There's a story of one meditator who sat so long in deep stillness that birds nested on his shoulder. Either a parable or the world's calmest man. Want one more twist? Some Buddhist monks reportedly used sound deprivation caves, literally holes in the ground where not even echoes could survive. The idea was, when the world stops speaking, you might finally hear your own soul. Imagine that kind of silence. Not peaceful, not quiet, void. And then, out of that void, something stirs, an insight, a realization, or maybe just a deep, resonant, "oh." That sound could be enlightenment or indigestion, hard to say. But let's come back to that fire, the inner one. Because whether it's a breath in Edfu, a hum in the Himalayas, or a whisper in your living room, that heat, that spark, That's something ancient and alive. So next time you feel cold, not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, try closing your eyes. Picture a flame. Breathe. Let it flicker into life. It might just melt something. Let's head east now, into the shadowed groves of China, where jade pendants tap gently against silk robes, and the sound of running water is as sacred as scripture. This is the land where qi, the life force, flows through everything: trees, stones, bodies, thoughts. You've heard the word qi, sometimes spelled chi. But did you know there are maps of it inside you? Channels called meridians, traced not by scalpels but by sensation. The ancients believed this flow could be blocked, redirected, or amplified, not by surgery, but through movement, sound, and breath. Enter Taoist meditation, a system not just for stillness, but for tuning the body like an instrument. They had techniques with names like microcosmic orbit, which, let's be honest, sounds like something Elon Musk would launch. But here, it meant circulating energy up your spine and down your front body in a continuous loop. You'd visualize it moving like a glowing bead, carried on the breath. The goal wasn't enlightenment. It was balance, harmony, immortality even. Yes, some Taoist monks were full-on body hackers. They consumed special herbs, followed precise breathing ratios, avoided ejaculation like it was a curse, and meditated in caves for decades, all in the pursuit of becoming Shan, an immortal sage, floaty, glowy, possibly capable of riding dragons. Hard to fact-check. Historians still argue whether the immortality stuff was literal or allegorical. But then again, how do you argue with someone who claims to have turned into starlight? Let's drop into a bamboo grove now, where a lone practitioner performs qigong. Slow, deliberate movements paired with deep breathing. Each gesture corresponds to an organ. Each breath clears emotion, sadness in the lungs, anger in the liver, worry in the spleen. They didn't just treat the body, they treated the feelings hiding inside the body. And here's something wild. One qigong master reportedly generated such intense heat from his palms that wet towels steamed on contact. Modern skeptics scoff, but believers point to thermal imaging studies and say, look again. Even the architecture aligned with qi. Homes were designed according to feng shui, with altars placed so spirits wouldn't get confused. Rivers weren't just for water, they were veins of the land, pulsing with energy. You don't just live in a house, you live in an organism. Let's detour to Korea, where Sun Mudo monks combine martial arts and meditation. Imagine high kicks in slow motion, robes fluttering, all while staying as calm as a still lake. Not performance, not fighting, a way to move with the breath instead of against it. And now glide down to Vietnam, where older traditions lingered in shadow. Some rural shamans practiced breath divination, listening to the rhythm of someone's breathing to diagnose spiritual imbalance. A wheeze could mean grief. A skipped breath? Fear of the future. They'd treat it with herbs, chants, and sometimes silence. Ever notice how a parent can tell their child's mood by just how they breathe? Turns out that's ancient wisdom wearing a modern mask. Now here's a deep cut. Some old Taoist texts describe something called embryonic breathing. The idea was to return your breath to the way it was before you were born. Gentle, internal, like an echo of the womb. Practitioners would focus on making their breath so subtle that even a feather placed under their nose wouldn't move. Why? Because in stillness, they said, the spirit could be heard. And if you listened long enough, you'd remember your origin, not just your birthday, but your soul date. There's a tale of a monk who meditated so deeply in a forest that birds, snakes, and even tigers gathered around him, drawn by his calm. He never flinched, not out of fearlessness, but because he'd become part of the forest rhythm. No separation, just presence. I know that sounds impossible, but maybe the real point is this. When you breathe with intention, move with grace, and sit with silence, you become a tuning fork, vibrating with the song of the world. Most of us are off-key, busy, jittery, buzzing with static. But when you're still, really still, you might catch a hum, a chord, a note that doesn't come from outside, but from somewhere buried beneath your ribs. So tonight, before you drift off, maybe try this. Sit quietly, spine tall. Breathe in through your nose, slow and wide. As you exhale, imagine that breath spiraling gently down your spine. Like water trickling through bamboo, like moonlight down a temple wall. It's not magic, but it's close. Let's slide west now, into a land where gods ride elephants, rivers are sacred beings, and the act of closing your eyes could unlock entire universes. Welcome to India, the spiritual forge of meditation techniques so ancient, they make Greek philosophy look like a pop quiz. India didn't just birth meditation, it mass-produced it in every flavor imaginable. Want to dissolve the ego? They've got a path for that. Want to merge with divine light? Step right up. Want to focus on your breath so hard you forget your taxes? Bingo. Let's start with the Vedas, those ancient hymns whispered in Sanskrit around flickering fire altars. They speak of dhyana, the Sanskrit word for meditation. But dhyana wasn't just sitting cross-legged and vibing. It meant a sustained focus so pure, you could hear the heartbeat of the cosmos. And here's the kicker. Dhyana is the root of the word Zen. Yep, India to China to Japan, like spiritual telephone. Now fast forward to the Upanishads, those dreamy philosophical texts that read like sleep poetry. They described a state called turiya, the fourth state of consciousness, beyond waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Imagine floating on the edge of nothingness, fully aware but completely still. Historians still argue whether turiya was an actual state or just a metaphor for inner freedom. Either way, it makes Netflix look tame. Here's a curveball. In certain tantric traditions, meditation wasn't about withdrawing from the senses, but diving into them, savoring a sound, following a touch, observing desire without flinching. One technique involved gazing into your partner's eyes without blinking until the illusion of separation faded. Sexy? Maybe. Sacred? Definitely. There's also mantra meditation, simple in form, cosmic in function. You repeat a phrase, not to hypnotize yourself, but to tune yourself. The syllables aren't just sounds, they're vibrational keys. The classic Om, said to contain the entire sound structure of the universe in one pulse. Want something wild? Ancient rishis believed sound came before matter, that the world itself was sung into existence, which makes every whispered chant a miniature Big Bang. Then there's Nada Yoga, the yoga of inner sound. You sit in silence, not to quiet the mind, but to listen. First you hear outer sounds, a bird, a breeze, your neighbor's terrible music. But go deeper, and you'll catch the inner hum, a subtle ringing, a tone that doesn't come from your ears. Some say it's the echo of your soul. Others think it's just ear pressure. Who knows? But when you're lying in the dark and that sound swells up, it's hard not to believe it's something more. Let's not forget Kundalini meditation, the firecracker of spiritual practices. The idea is that there's a serpent of energy coiled at the base of your spine. Through breath, movement, and mantra, you awaken it, and it rises through your chakras, exploding into cosmic awareness. Some practitioners describe bliss, others describe emotional chaos. It's like spiritual skydiving, breathtaking, dangerous, and definitely not for casual tourists. In the forests of India, some monks practiced tritaka, the art of gazing. They'd stare at a candle flame until tears welled up. Not from emotion, but from sheer focus. The goal? To burn through mental chatter. To melt the mirror of the mind until what's reflected isn't thought, but truth. Ever heard of Yoga Nidra? It's like a guided nap that leads you into the in-between. You're not asleep, not awake, just suspended. The body rests, the mind observes, and the soul, it floats. One teacher called it sleep with a hint of awareness. Try it, and you'll feel like you're dreaming with your eyes closed. One quirky tidbit, some ancient texts suggest that true masters didn't meditate for hours. They meditated once, and it lasted forever. They stepped into presence and never left. Which makes you wonder, what if enlightenment isn't a peak, but a permanent state? Now picture a Himalayan cave. It's snowing outside. Inside, a yogi sits, wrapped in only a thin cloth. He hasn't moved in days. His breath is so slow it barely stirs the air. Around him, there's no calendar, no phone, no headlines, just pulse, presence, and the quiet song of being. And somewhere, beneath the snow, the earth hums. That hum, it's not a metaphor. Seismologists have recorded a constant vibration in the planet, even when there are no earthquakes. The ancients didn't have that data, but maybe they didn't need it. Maybe they felt it. Maybe when they meditated, they weren't escaping the world. They were syncing with its frequency. So next time you sit, eyes closed, back straight, and that one thought won't stop knocking, just remember, even the sages got distracted. The mind is a monkey, and the breath is your banana. Take one, breathe, stay a while. Okay, one last stop on this sleepy tour of ancient calm. We're heading far north into the icy peaks of Tibet, where the air is thin, the yaks are thick, and the monks, they glow in the dark. Okay, not literally, but sometimes it feels like they might. You've heard of Tibetan monks, right? Shaved heads, red robes, serene smiles that make you question all your life choices. What you might not know is that Tibet was the cradle of some of the most intense, mind-bending meditation techniques ever developed. Let's start with the heavyweight, Tummo, the inner fire. Picture this. You're a monk sitting on a frozen mountaintop wearing nothing but a thin sheet. Around you, a blizzard howls, and yet your body radiates heat, so much heat, in fact, that the sheet steams dry. This isn't a movie. It's a documented practice. In the 1980s, a team of scientists from Harvard studied these monks and confirmed it. Body temperature actually rose through breath control and focus. What's the trick? It's not magic. It's visualization plus breath belief. Tummo practitioners imagine a flame in their belly. With each breath, they feed it. The flame grows, spreads, warms the blood, warms the bones, and eventually reality follows imagination. Historians still argue whether Tummo is a physiological anomaly or proof of untapped human potential. But here's a fringe angle. Some Tibetan texts say that once the fire is lit, you never get cold again. Let's spin to another technique. Dzogchen, the great perfection. It's not a practice so much as a realization. Imagine this. Your thoughts, clouds, your awareness, sky. Dzogchen teaches you to watch thoughts without grabbing them, to sit so deep in stillness that even silence feels noisy. One master described it as recognizing the face you had before you were born. Not creepy at all. Tibetan Buddhism also developed a thing called dream yoga. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. You train yourself to become lucid in dreams, then meditate within the dream. The goal? To realize that waking life is also a dream. So instead of panicking when your boss turns into a goat mid-presentation, you just breathe and go with it. Want a quirky tidbit? Some advanced practitioners claim they can choose the moment of their death. They meditate, say goodbye, and slip out like a candle going out. There are even stories of rainbows appearing over the body, or it shrinking after death. Again, not guaranteed, but still, rainbow exit. That's iconic. Now here's something deeply poetic. Tibetans have a practice called Tonglen. It means giving and receiving. You breathe in the pain of others, yes, the dark stuff. Then you breathe out relief, light, compassion. It's like emotional recycling. One teacher said, if you want to be miserable, focus on yourself. If you want peace, take on the suffering of the world. Try that next time someone cuts you off in traffic. And then there's chanting. Not your usual Om. Tibetan chants are deep, guttural, and strangely hypnotic. They vibrate in your chest. Some monks can produce multiple tones at once, a low growl and a high note simultaneously. It's called throat singing, and when done in a candlelit monastery, it sounds like the earth itself is speaking. These chants aren't just music, they're tools. They map the mind, unlock layers of emotion. One chant might be designed to crack grief, another to summon courage. Some are so sacred, they're only passed down whispered, from teacher to student. Let's not forget mandalas, those stunning geometric patterns made from colored sand. Monks spend days, sometimes weeks, creating them, grain by grain. Then once finished, they sweep it all away. Poof, gone. Why? Because impermanence is the ultimate truth. Beauty doesn't last. That's the lesson. The sand goes into a river, flowing back to the world it came from. Kind of makes your childhood finger paintings feel a little less dramatic, doesn't it? Here's the haunting part. After the Chinese invasion, many Tibetan teachers fled or were silenced. A library of spiritual wisdom nearly vanished, but some monks carried it in their memory. Entire texts, techniques, rituals, unwritten but alive. Even now in some Himalayan villages, you'll find a wrinkled elder, eyes like snowmelt, teaching a teenager how to sit, not in a yoga class, not on YouTube, just human to human, breath to breath, and just like that, the line isn't broken. So what's the takeaway here? That somewhere high in the mountains or deep in your own chest, there's a stillness that doesn't age, a fire that doesn't burn out, a dream that doesn't end at dawn. You don't need robes or caves or incense, just attention, just breath, just you. Sit, breathe in, fire, breathe out, sky. The journey's over now, not in a dramatic way, more like the way fog lifts from a valley, quiet, inevitable. All the ancient breaths we borrowed tonight, all the forgotten fires, all the chants echoing from mountaintops and bone, they can rest now. You don't need to carry them. They were never heavy, just soft embers. Feel your breath again. It's slower now, like silk pulling through water. Maybe your shoulders have fallen just a little. Maybe your hands feel warm. That's the body remembering its own peace. You've wandered through deserts and temples, through dream states and sacred diagrams, through sighs whispered across generations. You've traced maps drawn not on paper, but under the skin. You've listened to secrets not spoken, but hummed, exhaled, shared in silence. And now there's nowhere else to go. Nothing more to uncover tonight. No more teachers to follow. The sages have gone to bed. The scrolls have closed. Even the stars seem to blink slower, like they're drowsy too. So lie back just as you are, not seeking, not fixing. Imagine yourself as a pebble dropped in a still lake. No ripples, just sinking gently, gently into the warmth of sleep. Your body is a vessel, your breath the anchor, your dreams the tide. Let them come. Let the world fade, like a mandala brushed away grain by grain. You are safe. You are enough. You are home. Good night, traveler. Sleep deeply. Sleep.